question about interest rates. You can stop holding your breath. It is expected to keep interest rates on hold this time around. The RBA governor said last week that she reckons households are in a pretty good position.
We have raised interest rates much more quickly than we have in the past, and that has created, in fact, a lot of political noise and a lot of noise from the general public. People are very unhappy. But what I'd like to highlight here is, though, despite that noise, households and businesses in Australia are actually in a pretty good position. Their balance sheets are pretty good. And those who are coming off very low fixed rate mortgages, they're managing quite well, and all the indications from the banks and all we hear from the banks is these households are doing fine.
Doing fine, says the RBA governor. Is that how you feel? Do you think that Michelle Bullock is correctly reading the room on this one? Well, one group says she's got it plain wrong. Peter White is the Managing Director of the Finance Brokers Association of Australia. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Rachel. How are you going?
Yeah, well, are Australian households in a pretty good position, as Michelle Bullock thinks?
No, I think the Reserve Bank Governor has got it seriously wrong when making these sort of comments. It must be a character trait, I think, with the role. So from memory, the past governor made similar sort of interesting comments. When we go out to the marketplace and we talk to people and actually understand what they're going through, we see that around 35% of household borrowers or mortgage holders are experiencing mortgage stress. So I can't see that's a pretty good position in my mind.
So can you just tell me, 35% of Australians are experiencing mortgage stress. Can you just tell me what defines mortgage stress?
Yeah, it's having difficulty in meeting their payments and having to do other things to actually make those payments. So research has seen that for people to actually make their repayments, which is why the bank's reporting in the manner they are, saying, well, there's not high levels of default and people are making their payments because they've taken on second jobs. They've used the cash they had in the bank. If they had an offset account or redraw facility, that's all been used up. So they've used everything at their means to make sure they can meet their mortgage repayment. But that doesn't mean they're doing it easy. That means they're doing it hard. And so right now, I agree there will be no rate rise today. It'd be a very foolish move for that to happen. But we've been saying that it shouldn't happen, since the last one. To make sure that people can manage what they've got, especially going to Christmas, but also for the Reserve Bank to actually watch the real data. Because at the moment, they're looking at data from months ago, and that's not symptomatic of what's happening right now in the marketplace or even last month. So it's very important they pause.
So you think that there's a bit of a data lag? You would think that the Reserve Bank has got the most accurate, most up-to-date data about all of our financial positions, but you're saying that they're still dealing with a lag in the data.
Most certainly, yeah, and you would expect that they would, and their data is accurate. I'm not arguing that, but it's old. It's 2 to 3 months ago. So when you're talking about making decisions today and talking about how households are faring, you're not actually really using accurate data in your assessment, nor are you taking the human factor into account as how people are managing. They're looking at statistical data, statistical economic data. They're not looking at the human data and what the human sacrifice is to actually get to that point.
So while we might see a reprieve in interest rate rises today, with the economy running the way it is and with all of the pressures that we're feeling, do you see that more rate rises in the new year are inevitable?
At the moment, I would say not. I would think that we should be going into a longer-term flattening period of no more rate rises, and then hopefully in the second half of the year, we'll see rates starting to come back a little bit. It's all going to depend on what's happening with inflation. We can get a little bit carried away of the amount of money that gets spent over Christmas, but that's normal. And we're already seeing in some data that's being released that I saw yesterday that people are reducing their Christmas spending. They're not going out for the lavish presents or the lavish meals and so on. They're cutting right back. So, people are still doing it tough just to get by and making sacrifices to make sure that they can still have a Christmas.
Isn't that what the Reserve Bank governor wants, though, to cool spending, to cool the economy?
Yeah, most certainly, but that's already been happening. Right? So to say that people are doing it, that we're in a pretty good position is just wrong. They're not in a good position. They're making ends meet to ensure that they can still make their payments on their mortgage or paying their rent.
Last week we heard the Reserve Bank Governor blame domestic demand for our inflation issues. Let's have a listen to that.
Hairdressers, dentists, dining out, sporting and other recreational activities, the prices of all these services are rising strongly. This reflects domestic economic conditions, not international, and it's an indication that aggregate demand is sufficiently greater than aggregate supply to sustain these price increases.
What's your response to her position there?
Yeah, well, it's always interesting commentary. I mean, the reality is that domestic costs have gone up. There's no arguing that because all of our costs have gone up. So whether it's the price of electricity, that affects business as much as it does ourselves at home. I tell you what, though, I still need to get my hair cut. So, yeah, they might be spaced a little bit longer and cost a little bit more, but there are things that you've just got to do in life. And I don't know that drawing attention to those sort of realities is necessarily dealing with life itself rather than trying to make up excuses for what's happening.
On ABC Radio Brisbane, it's 18 minutes to 9. I'm speaking to Peter White, who's the Managing Director of the Finance Brokers Association of Australia. Peter, what can Australians do? They can't refinance their way out of this.
No, refinancing is a real difficulty. I think it was in the last 2 days, APRA, the governing body for the banks, made an announcement that they weren't changing the servicing buffer rate, so it's still at 3%. So if you want to try and refinance yourself out to a better rate, it's extremely difficult to be able to do that because of this servicing rate. So when you go for a loan application, you pay they take the interest rate of the day, the variable rate, and add 3% on top of that. And so you've got to be able to make, it's almost a 10% interest rate to today's marketplace as your monthly repayment. And there's not a lot of people that can do that. And that rate, from our point of view, we've been talking to regulators and into the market saying, if you're an existing borrower, that servicing rate should be about 1%, maybe 1.5%, but it needs to be down that bottom of the scale because you don't impact the economic data of this country because you're already in the system. You're a borrower. What you're trying to do is to get a better deal so you don't have to take on a second job or sell assets or use your cash up. And we are, APRA, as a regulator, are prohibiting that sort of movement and those sort of opportunities for home borrowers across Australia, and it's just wrong.
Is anyone having success talking to their lender and asking for a better rate?
There are small successes, and that's the thing that everybody needs to do. If they are trying to get a better deal, they need to speak to their lender first of all and see what they're prepared to do, especially if they've got evidence of a cheaper rate elsewhere. You can use that as a bit of leverage. But you need to go to your existing lender and look to see what they can do for you. If not, go see your mortgage broker and talk to your mortgage broker and say, this is my situation. Be clear and upfront with all the details that you have. They've got access to a much broader selection of opportunities in the marketplace. And that's what it's all about, is looking at where the opportunities that best suit you. And you need to get the right guidance for that.
Do you think, Peter, that we're all suffering from a bit of finance fatigue as well? Like, it's been a rough year. You know, just the idea of calling my bank and having a discussion about a better rate is just exhausts me a bit.
Me too, let me assure you. I completely agree. We're all probably very, very exhausted and completely over this conversation. But what we've got to do is look after ourselves. And if we just roll over and do nothing, then the banks will be allowed to get away with it. And then come June 30th next year, they'll talk about how many more billions of dollars of profit they made. So you need to keep them accountable. Get somebody else to do the work for you. That's why I talk about using a broker. Let them do the work for you to get you the better deal if your bank won't help you out. Or you're over it, but you still want a better deal.
And what about those sorts of hidden transaction fees? If your bank says, yes, we can move you to a better rate, but there'll be some kind of transaction fee.
Yes, well, the fees they charge also you can negotiate to be waived or reduced if they apply. And again, that's where a bit of research in the marketplace and using an industry professional to do that for you helps you to get around a lot of those fees because quite often they will get waived. So don't just accept it as, well, I've got no other choice. You certainly do have the choices. So just watch out for those. And the one that's one of the biggest ones you've got to watch out for is mortgage insurance. So that's when you're borrowing more than 80%. of the value of your property. So watch out for that one. That can be a nasty bite as well.
Yeah, that's a nasty bite that nobody needs. Thanks very much, Peter. Peter White
Pleasure.
is the Managing Director of the Finance Brokers Association of Australia, joining us there to talk about how we can address these sorts of finance issues. Of course, the RBA, the good money today is saying that the RBA is going to hold off on another interest rate rise, but there may be more in the future.